Hi, Rick. Welcome and welcome everybody back to Carl and Rick Talk Risk. Rick, I don't know about you, but we have 35 centimeters of snow outside, which is it was fine the first day.
Well, I'm at my university office today, so while we don't have any snow outside, we do have 3.5 centimeters of salt that the university puts down because I think our university facilities manager is getting a major kickback from a salt company for putting unbelievably thick layers of salt um, down
Yeah,
around the campus. But anyhow, I
yeah. So
digress.
no, it's not at all. Yeah, it's not a thing here. You don't see a lot of salt, but some sand, and it's funny here that like in Halifax, I remember the roads are the priority, right? They get cleaned, and you can pretty much guarantee you can drive. Other parts, yeah, not so much. Here, it's the bike paths. The bike paths are perfect. I even saw a car driving on a bike path. I mean, it happens because it's like, yeah, bikes are the priority here.
Yeah,
Um,
well, they're the priority in Halifax as well, but uh, you know, calling a spade, the Netherlands is flat. Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Halifax is not flat.
yeah, that's true.
Two, the weather in Holland's pretty mild year round.
Yeah, mostly.
Okay. In
Yeah,
Halifax, it's not. Okay. And
yeah,
while you might have snow now, we get pretty significant amounts of snow. So making
yeah,
bikes the priority here is just not good because
yeah,
Halifax is a peninsula. It's difficult at the best of times to have cars there. Yes, I
yeah,
realize that you want bikes to get the cars off the road, but no one bikes here and no one can
yeah,
bike here.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly. Yeah,
And so they're
it's
putting in all these bike lanes, and it just makes the traffic problem so much worse. But I digress. We want to talk about risk, and that is
yeah.
a bad risk trying to be eco friendly for a solution that applies in the Netherlands but doesn't apply in Eastern Canada. But anyhow,
That's a good topic for another podcast. Idealism versus pragmatism, I think. Um, Rick, we shared an article. I read it this week, and I share it with you because it touches me personally. Actually, that's one reason. You'll see why, and it also goes into something I'm reading at the moment, which I also find gives context to this. Let me tell you the title of the article. Europe's generals are warning people to prepare for war. The Economist. It's published last week, I think. December 30th. Yeah, a week ago. And yeah, first of all, the anecdote, the personal anecdote, and it's actually mentioned in the article. The Netherlands is getting people ready for war and warning people you need to be ready. We might be attacked. It might be a cyber attack. You don't know what form it's going to take. You need to have an emergency kit. So we got a flyer a couple of months ago, and we were advised to become part of a neighborhood WhatsApp group to put away 5 liters, 5 gallons of water, get dried food, stock up on batteries, a radio, learn the emergency channel, all kinds of stuff, right? Which we're still working on. But other countries are doing this around Europe, and yeah, the article opens with quite a quote. It's from the General Fabien Mandon in France. He says, "We have to accept losing our children." Pretty blunt, right? Um, and throughout the article, they talk about just different approaches to getting people ready for this threat, and how some countries are more war ready, like the Nordic countries. They already have conscription to some degree. Young people serve in the forces in some form for a while. And other countries, that's gone away, right? Germany doesn't have conscription anymore. They're trying to roll it back a bit. Anyway, focus on risk. This is kind of interesting, and I think you had a point in your reply which I'll let you share your views in a second. But um, there's lessons for risk managers here. What do we do? Do we scare people? Do we scare the front office into your losses could be $1 billion according to this model? Don't worry about the assumptions. Or is it more of a culture change where we take people along, hold their hands, go along with them? There's all kinds of different approaches to how do we prepare the front office, um, the company as a whole for the risks we might face. And yeah, reading about what these generals are saying and what countries around Europe are saying about war readiness kind of made me think about that. What caught your attention?
Well, first off, in the interest of full disclosure, I do subscribe to The Economist, and I do get several of their daily newsletters. So I saw when that flashed across my email, um, my first thought was, holy smokes, they're crying fire in a crowded theater. And for those of you that don't know, that's the classic case of you make a bad situation much, much worse in that you form a stampede. Um, I'm thinking about this more over the time period. You know, there's obviously an element of politics in this. Okay.
Yeah.
There's a huge element of politics in this. There's also a huge element of marketing in this, which I think is developing a risk culture at its most cynical and most evil. I.e., the first line, we have to be prepared for, our children to die.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Come on, give me a break.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Um, you know, growing up in Canada, growing up on the east coast of Canada, uh, life is pretty idyllic in many ways. Okay? Yes, we have disadvantages as well. But, Canada, our constant angst is, are we going to have more than 6 people in our armed forces? Why is it that one of our large shopping malls has more submarines than our entire Navy does? Um, Sadly, that's not a joke.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Sadly, it up until recently was not a joke. Uh, why did we buy so many outdated subs from Britain that 3 of them basically couldn't make it across the Atlantic? Uh,
Hmm.
uh, Again, sadly, not a joke. I might be wrong on the 3. It might have been 4 that couldn't make it across the Atlantic. And of course, and so for almost all my life, the only time war came in was November 11th, and the very, very, very few times that my father spoke about it. He was,
Mm.
um, he flew Lancasters during the Second World War. Okay.
Okay. Oh,
Um, uh, Something which I think was very, very, very much a two-edged sword. So that
yeah.
biases my thinking a lot as well. Here's another thing though to think about, given the events of the past week, is calling a spade. We have three major powers in terms of military
Mm.
uh, effects that swamp a country like Canada or the Netherlands. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
every Canadian could be armed to the teeth, and a small little subunit of an ROTC unit in the U.S. would, deal with us in about 7 minutes. I of course exaggerate with that, no matter how much we get our elbows up.
Mm.
But something that we should think about. I think it's something that the world needs to think about because, again, the events of the last week show that basically no one is safe.
Yeah.
Having said that, is this the way to do it?
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yeah.
believe Absolutely not. You brought
Yeah.
up culture. We talk about risk culture a lot in organizations. I believe that risk culture is absolutely important. We probably do need to start thinking seriously about building a societal risk culture.
Hmm.
Um, and this is where my principles of risk, thinking about risk as possible, bad or good things may happen. Uh, Risk culture is not to be the department of no. Um,
Yeah.
all of those things. So in Canada, we're not Israel or sorry, I probably shouldn't name names of countries, but we're really relatively pacifist country who hasn't
Yeah.
been affected really since 1945.
Yeah. In a peaceful neighborhood, generally, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
you know,
and
that's
here,
what you mean with Israel, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
and here's a very, very, very important point that changes things. Okay. Uh, Again, I think that we're all grateful for what the United States decided to finally do in the Second World War.
Hmm.
Okay. I suspect that many of our European friends will say, what the heck took you so long? But the reality is, there hasn't been a war fought on North American soil since the American Civil War.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the American Civil War is a couple of nice film reels on the classic movie channel.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you think of war, they probably think more of cowboys and Indians than anything else. And
Yeah.
of course, the Second World War was totally glamorized by Hollywood. So our view of war on this side of the Atlantic is completely distorted. Yes, you have all the stuff going on that went on in Southeast Asia and all the protests, etc. But again,
Yeah.
it was something on your TV screen, which is
Yeah.
very, very, very different than going through war. And yes, a
Yeah.
lot of people were affected and traumatized, and families were directly traumatized and were there. But the reality is the vast bulk weren't.
Yeah. Yeah.
No one in
Yeah.
North America has been displaced by war.
Yeah. Uh, I mean, that in itself is a bit of a risk management lesson, right? If you feel like, oh, this is something that happens to other companies, other trading desks, other
Yeah,
industries, right? That is something a risk management team should think about how to make risks more real for their their front office, right? The
but
people
we
they
go
are.
berserk if we don't have power for 48 hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, we're pretty used to it. But
Yeah. I really want to make reference to the book I mentioned because yeah, maybe you have something interesting to say about it. Um, so the general feeling in Europe is that war is coming. As I mentioned, a lot of countries, generals are really preparing people. Now, I'm reading Churchill's first volume about the Second World War, so the 6, 7, 8 years leading up, right? He's not even prime minister yet. And he's the only one banging the drum. Hey, guys, this is serious. Everybody else, um, France is a bit afraid, but not really doing anything about it, right? They're in their own political quagmire. But in Britain, almost nobody accepts that there could be a war, right? It's the and all throughout the first 200 pages of that, so up to what I've read so far, is him trying in different ways to convince people, like, hey, they're spending, £1 billion a year on rearmament. Their air force is now our beyond our own, right? Beyond the Royal Air Force. He gives a lot of his speeches, and it's him trying to convince um, politicians and the public that we should take this seriously. And here's my question from that: it matters who you listen to, right? um, and how do you know who to listen to? That's often difficult, right? Churchill was not a model, right? So like I think this gets into cognitive diversity. If I channel my Rick for for a second, I think this is where you have your cognitive diversity, and you really Do you have people that can challenge and have opposing ideas from everybody else? Because if everybody's saying the same thing, you got to wonder if it's wrong.
Or you gotta wonder if it's right.
Yeah, yeah.
I- Obviously you're baiting me with cognitive diversity, and I believe that everyone has to have the argument with themselves. But I think that um, Churchill uh, tried to argue with facts, and facts
Yep.
sometimes are pretty hard sell. And
Yeah.
actually, in this day of social media, facts are. In fact, I don't even know how we define facts now. Um, they've certainly changed a lot.
Yeah.
And so, saying we must be prepared for our children to die, it's a great way to get the attention,
Hmm.
and it's a great way to position someone's uh, mind and ideas and thoughts. But
Mm.
and I'm leaving this as an open question. I'm not asking this question as a judgment, but do we want to use the techniques of selling soap and perfume and jeans for risk management, particularly for the big ticket items like war?
Hmm.
I mean, is that really what we need to do? Um,
Yeah.
I don't know.
It, I think that's a good way to finish because yeah, um, it is really an open question. There's many ways to convince. There's very blunt ways, but
When something is a slam dunk, okay, when something is a slam dunk that it's absolutely bad to do this or it's absolutely good to do this, yeah,
mm,
sure, we use the techniques in Madison Avenue,
mhm, mhm,
okay? You appeal to, 80% to the heartstrings and the ego, and, 10% to logic, and 10% to, you know, whatever ideological whims that a person has.
yeah,
Okay. But preparing for war is not black and white.
mhm,
One of the things, so one of the studies, here I'm going way back in time and I'm going to be attacked again, but, 3 Mile Island is obviously back in the news with AI. But when you look at it, there were several studies that the major health effect of 3 Mile Island was all the media fallout that, we're all going to die of radiation poisoning. And
right,
that was actually, you know, in my mind, and again, this isn't, there's nuances to this and it's not black and white, but
yeah,
the media hype caused more health effects than any of the radiation
yeah,
um,
yeah,
uh,
huh,
effects. And, I think that there's an argument to be made that some of the COVID scaremongering caused, more
yeah,
negative, had more negative side effects than the disease or than the pandemic
yeah,
itself.
yeah. You
Okay,
lost the
and
nuance,
again,
right?
not the minimizing uh, 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 COVID by any stretch of imagination.
Yeah,
And responsible leadership, responsible risk management understands that um, understanding the risk culture, understanding the risk psyche, uh, unintended consequences are real.
hmm,
Um, and you never want the unintended consequences to first off bring about what you're trying to prevent or what you're trying to cause to happen.
hmm,
Um, or to, you don't want the cure to be worse than the disease.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly. Um, yeah, the one thing I want to add is, I think in reading Churchill, he really understood the other side better better than anyone. He
Right.
understood how a belligerent force is going to respond if you show weakness, if you are all talk. Um, so I think that's somewhat lacking in
Oh,
risk management teams.
well,
How,
if you go to any of my corporate seminars or even any of my academic seminars,
yeah,
I make it very clear that empathy is the killer app in today's age of AI.
yeah, yeah,
And empathy, again, because of DI issues, we commingle empathy with sympathy, but empathy is truly trying to understand what the other party slash parties are thinking, why they're
yeah,
acting the way that they are, how they're going to act. Not that you agree with it,
yeah,
not
yeah,
that you want to do the same yourself, but empathy is the killer app.
yeah,
And
yeah,
again, I'll just put out a reference. Rita McGrath, business prof at Columbia, wrote probably the shortest article in the Harvard Business Review ever, but about the 3 years of management, where she says that we are now in the era of empathy. And I think that she is absolutely right.
huh, yeah, yeah, exactly. Without that, yeah, the ability to model future scenarios gets very, very difficult because it's
Yeah,
not in a vacuum.
I should point out that she said the first two areas of business. The first one was basic engineering. Okay, how do we make a steam engine more efficient? And then the second era, and I'm not paraphrasing quite accurately, but de facto was Taylorism, scientific management. How do we make management a technical science?
Mhm.
And with AI kind of taking over that part, I believe that she is absolutely right that we're coming into the era of empathy. Now, ironically, the statement, we must be prepared for our children to die, shows a lot of empathy, and it shows that immediately you're going to get votes from all the parents who have, 3-year-old kids who may or may not want to go sledding. Okay. Inside joke for our listeners. But, uh, you know, I'm not sure that's how you want to set up a risk culture.
Yeah, exactly. Um, okay, this was actually super fertile ground for a conversation. It's funny how we come across topics and we're like, yeah, but do we have anything to say? And then you start recording and it's like stuff comes out.
Oh, stuff comes out, man.
That should be the name of our podcast. But it was two dogs chasing a car. Stuff comes out. So many alternatives.
But what I want to know is
um,
what happens when the dog catches the car.
yeah, well, you don't know. The dog doesn't know. I'll save our other topic for our next podcast. I just shared a video with Rick before the podcast about digital learning and how that's going, how that's being rolled back. So I think let's talk about that another time because I think I see us getting deep into that one as well. Both have strong views. Okay, everybody, let us know what you think. Of course, how do risk management teams convince? And we'll see you again shortly. Cheers. Bye, Rick.
Have fun out there.